Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Here we are with Carol Thorney. I am going to let her do a quick introduction and we will get right into it.
Thank you so much, Sankita. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, as the case may be, wherever we are in the world. I'm the founder, president, and CEO for Thorney Advisors. I started this business after 9/11 through necessity, as well as pretty much by choice. I think some of those choices were taken away from us, but created an opportunity to start consulting. So I started my company and started working both as a trusted advisor within the technology space with several technology companies and providing program, portfolio, and project management support, as well as strategy around big initiatives, corporate-wide initiatives for companies in all of the sectors: financial services, life science, healthcare, and others. And, providing that visionary leadership and strategic insights to streamline operations and implement relevant technologies within the companies and tie all of the capabilities across, the customers facing community, as well as the operations and IT organization to make those programs and projects successful. My career has spanned both financial services, working in investment management, and then moving into the insurance space, and then insurance turned into a healthcare market, and then purely in the technology software development space. So all the things that I love and enjoy working on, and working with individuals throughout the organization to create change and sustainability through transformation as well. So with that, I will pass it back to Sankita.
That's great. Now that, we have heard a little bit of all the things that you have achieved, you are an immigrant like me, and like probably a lot of people on this. Can you tell us a little bit, about your coming in here and how your culture plays into your journey, and especially in those initial years, what kind of biases did you come across, as an immigrant, as a woman, as a person of color?
Well, if I might, we've had this a little bit of a chat before. My journey here is a little different and not your typical immigrant story. My parents were fortunate enough to spend my summer vacations in the US, kind of the reverse from the tropics, right? And so I had an exposure very early to America and the American culture. However, that's very different when you're on vacation from when you move here permanently. And so I was very young. I was 16 in my senior year. So that created, even getting into school and staying in the same grade that I was in, really created some challenges. But immediately, you perform. And I stayed in the grade that I was supposed to be in, which is a senior. And that created other opportunities for me very early in my career, because I made a decision to work and go to school at the same time. So at 17 years old, I was a young supervisor. And again, not just, we talk about gender, we talk about immigrant status, but then, there's also age. So, you're the youngest person in the department. How do you gain the respect of individuals in your organization, on your team, and create efficacy so that your work speaks for itself? One of the individuals that I paid close attention to, that I was able to bring those experiences to the workplace, were actually my parents. My mother owned her own business. My father was a manager, and he actually brought us to work with him. So I was able to see engineers working with him at a very young age. And so it wasn't unusual for me to feel comfortable in a position of making decisions and being part of a team to do that. some of the other challenges that you also have, or assumptions that people make about you because of the country that you come from. The school system, not understanding. We're part of the British Commonwealth, so understanding the educational system, and then bridging that gap between your education, your experiences, and what you bring to the table. So if you think about all the things that we bring to the table, whether we're born here or not, it's really about your values. It's really about what work means to you and your work ethic. And who's going to say no to somebody that's willing to put shoulder to the grindstone, as my father says all the time, and listen carefully, follow directions, volunteer, to do work that is beyond what your regular job is, right? And so those are some of the things that you do to prove yourself and to get through some of those biases, whether it's age or whether it's assumptions about who people think you are because of the country that you come from.
Okay, so let me interject in here and say, so what you're saying, and I know you and I have talked before, is people come up to you and say, "Oh, hey, how come you speak such good English?" Or, "Hey, what are you
Yes.
doing here? You were 17 years old. I shouldn't have to report to you." So I'm assuming you got these kind of things,
Oh,
and
absolutely. Speak
so
English for me, I am speaking English.
yes,
English is the first
yeah,
language. The Queen's
yeah.
English is the first language in my culture. So I always, from some of my classmates, and we've talked about this and joked about it at our class reunions, but singing Deo to me when I first started in high school. To me, I thought it was hysterical personally because I was like, wow. That's so different from what I would expect. But I also recognize that when people are not comfortable, they don't know what to say, so they go too funny, right? And so comedy always bridges those gaps. And sometimes the class comedian is the best person to break through those barriers and start conversations, right? And and that's always my way as well of partaking and providing information and letting people understand who you are and where you come from and what's norm. When you go on vacation, that's normal. That's not normal. That's your normal. That's not normal. We go to work every day. We have suits on in the heat, stockings, heel shoes. We do all the things you do here, there. So
You
we're
weren't
not all
tempted.
tourists, right? We're not all working in the tourist industry either.
So I know that initially, like you said, you definitely experienced those biases. Like you said, you pretty much had to just work extra hard to prove yourself. But now that you are where you are,
Mhm.
right? Would you do things differently when you were younger?
I've thought about that a lot. And, I was fortunate to work for very insightful, open-minded managers. Dave Lentini was my department manager at the Connecticut Bank and Trust Company. He was just a fabulous manager. He was also a great role model as well. And, we had people from all over the world. We had people from every nationality, basically. And we used to celebrate those nationalities, talk about bringing your culture to work. On Fridays, it was, bake something that you wanted to share with everyone. So that also gives you an opportunity to share a little bit of your culture. Food is always a nice equalizer.
Right.
And then have conversations about that. So there are biases no matter where you go. Part of what we did when I first went in was a rotation through banking operations. So part of that responsibility was also being a teller. So, expectations of who somebody is when you walk up to up to a teller is also some of the biases. What are people expecting? Is the person that's in a corduroy and a flannel shirt, do they have six figures in their accounts or $5, right? So it's all of those preemptive biases that you have to work through as well, whether you're the person behind the counter servicing the client as well as yourself, making sure that we're not bringing any of our biases to the table. So it's a mutual responsibility and opportunity to create conversations as well.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Yeah, because that's true, because we kind of sometimes look at someone else and just assume they're going to be biased against you.
Yes.
And that in itself is a bias. So I completely agree with you on that one. So now that we are here, and now that, there's such a big movement for diversity and inclusion,
Yes.
do you think at this point when people are hiring, women or people of color or whatever diversity that they want to bring in, are they doing it just as a checkbox? Do you think they're doing it for the wrong reasons? And, what's your thought on that?
So, my experience has been, the organizations that are checking a box, that pretty quickly, right? Because they're really not invested in you. They're not including you in the decisions and at a decision level. You're just a doer. They don't include you in the training classes or the workshops that are critical to developing and moving to the next level. The organizations that are serious about that talk about it. They create awareness programs about it. They invest time in it, and they make time and make it a commitment, not just a check the box item, but a performance related item for their leadership team as well. So talk the talk, but you have to also walk the walk. And that's where you really see the difference. You can slap DEI on any on any brochure, but at the end of the day, it's the way you manage, the way you solve conflicts. And sometimes knowing that you can't solve those conflicts inside your organization, you need to bring other people from the outside in as well. So leveraging consultants, bringing in individuals that can help to train the organization, because again, with any organization, there's cultural norms within the organization, and sometimes bringing an outside person to even do that training negates, what's the politics of individuals in the organization, and so that's a good way to do this. Certainly venues like this that provide an opportunity for individuals like myself to really talk about, you may think that something is funny, but it's offensive to me culturally.
Yes.
And I may get serious and you think I'm upset, but it's actually because I'm insulted. It's not that I'm angry, I'm just insulted. And so in my culture, when you insult me, I get very quiet and I get very serious. And so, knowing those subtle differences, and no, I'm not angry, and no, I'm not an angry Black woman, I'm insulted. And so those are subtleties that if you don't do the work and you don't have those conversations, you're going to make assumptions about individuals that are wrong. And then it just perpetuates, right? And so, it's all of those subtleties, right? So, and they have consequences, because if you continue to do that, you will lose good people. Because the people that are looking to grow in your organization and looking to really add value that results in revenue and making your company successful, that's really it's never the big things. Organization thinks it's those big things that push people to make a decision to exit. It's never the big things. It's those subtle things that are cultural, that you're probably not even aware of. And even culturally, it would be, they wouldn't even think that they would need to say that to you, that you should know. So the other part of it is also to communicate and let people know, I really didn't appreciate X, Y, and Z, and this is why. And then, on the receiver end, being open to hear that and understand it, and then act on it, right? And not take it personally, because, That's how biases work. They're built in culturally. We have biases in our own families. There are cultural biases within cultural groups. I mean, we know that. So,
Right.
it's just like, calling a Jamaican a Haitian. Can't you tell the difference? So it's a pride thing. It's a national thing. Can't you
Yes.
tell?
Yes.
Jamaican,
Yes.
so right. I mean, if you call, if you say somebody's from Ireland and they're from, Australia, you get the same reaction, right? They don't really think about it, but not everybody's. You can't tell where anybody's from anymore. And so, quote unquote. And so it's best never to make assumptions.
Oh, it's so interesting you say that. India is a country, which is where I come from, country of so many different states and languages and communities. And I have a friend. I mean, God forbid say that she's from a certain state. And she's like, no, I mean, even within the same state, within a certain region, she's like, no, don't assume. And it's like, oh, okay, sorry,
Exactly.
So yeah, people are really proud of where they come from. And that's another thing, because recently I saw it somewhere where you need to wear your culture proudly, and that's one of the other things that, okay, let's say we are in this whole diversity and inclusion, and yes, you reach this point where you can make a difference, and then boom, what happens is that the company or wherever you are decides, oh yeah, we did our job, and we have a woman or a person of color or whatever in the seat. But now, instead of listening to the different perspectives that the person brings, trying to enrich, your knowledge with that, you are expecting the person to kind of fold into, whatever the way your organization thinks.
Right.
And that's such a waste of being able to really, capitalize on this different viewpoint.
Exactly. I mean, what is
So,
a cultural norm? And so that's really, the $1 million question. What is a cultural norm? Because
right.
being Jamaican doesn't mean that I have the same experience as every Jamaican either. So,
No,
you can't broad brush Jamaicans either. So,
right.
so there's all of that as well. So, what we all bring to the table is, what is your work ethic? What is your ethic around how you work with people? What's important to you? For some people, they just want to come in and do the work and interact as lightly as possible and go home, right? And
It's
other
fine,
and
we need some
exactly.
people like that. Yeah.
Right. And so that's not a bad thing. And so when you're recruiting, you need to understand or be aware of what's important to your organization to be successful, right? And make decisions around that, not necessarily
Right.
what check the box item is as well. I mean, the other part of it as well is, does that person have a disability? That compounds things even more, right? Because having a disability or having a speech impediment may magnify a cultural difference, and you're not even really aware of that. And so if that you're your first encounter with someone that has a complicated set of issues bringing to the table as an employee, that again may set your bias to what you believe that that person's culture is, when it may have nothing to do with anything other than a subset of other issues that are being brought to the table. So,
True.
yeah. So if
And
you,
that
yeah,
is so hard for all of us because, I feel like pretty much all of us have these intrinsic biases that we are not
yes,
even aware of, right? And that's why it's really good that when we are made aware of this, we take it as a teaching moment and not as, a personal affront, just try to learn from it. Which
exactly.
brings me to, and now that you are at this position where you can go into an organization and you can make a difference. Tell us, how important do you think a role is of a mentor? And if you are starting up, and if you are, anywhere pretty much
Mhm.
in your career, how useful is it to have a mentor?
I think it's
And
critical. I volunteered for Careers Beginning when I was at Cigna, and Inroads. I've done work with them before as well, workshops and how to interview and prepare for interviews, as well as individuals coming up to me afterwards and saying, can I keep in touch with you, and would you be my mentor, right? So I have a couple of tens of folks out there that I've mentored over the years. And what I think is important about a mentor is someone that situationally you can also give them support, but also you can help to prepare them for the next step. You can have conversations with them because you develop a trust with them around what steps or what things you really need to look at to make sure that you're prepared for an advancement or to ask for an advancement. Am I really in the place? What is it that I'm asking for? Am I willing to do all that's required as well for that role? What are some blind sides that I may not be aware of that I need to be prepared for as well? So to me, a mentorship relationship it's not just about, oh, I'm a mentor and, X, Y, and Z is my mentor, but it's a working relationship. And hopefully you're helping that individual grow over time. And it's not a one-shot deal. It's not, first year and you never see you again. But part of being a mentor is keeping in touch with them, because we also know, because we've talked about the paths that we've shared as well, and the paths that we've walked, is it takes time. And when you're in the middle of growing fast and building your career, sometimes, folks that entered your life as a support, you're too busy. And so I think as a mentor, it's your job to reach out and say, just checking in. How are you doing? How's your family? How's the career going, et cetera, et cetera. So
true.
it's a two-way street.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are getting really close to the end here. So I wanted, before I go on, I wanted to see if there were any questions out there.
I have a question, Sangeeta.
Yes.
Hey, hi, Carol. Just a quick question. Based on we are all in the IT and BPO industry, and I've noted. I mean, you've been a leader in this industry for quite a while, right? And one of the things that the IT and BPO industries have achieved, even though I say it myself, being part of the industry, but I think you'd agree that the amount of employment opportunities the IT and BPO industries have created, both in US and globally,
Mhm.
have helped improve diversity in the workforce in terms of bringing in women, bringing in minorities, spreading the opportunities to rural and tier two cities here and globally, like in India and Philippines. So I would assume that you think that's all been good for improving diversity and opportunity for a broad swath of population. But now we talk a lot about automation. So how do you see that as a dilemma for the industry? Increased automation, does that mean that we don't continue down that path of improving employment opportunities for a very wide set of population? That has certainly happened in the last 30 years.
Good question, good comment. It was actually my ability to embrace technology early in my career that created opportunities for me, ironically. And so I completely agree with you that technology has really opened the door for a lot of women and for minorities, because at the end of the day, is my system working? Can I get my application up and running? Who can help me develop these technical requirements and map them and make sure that it's working and going to work and coexist effectively and represent my business requirements and be able to operationalize that work. So technology has certainly made a huge difference. I completely agree. But yes, automation is another growing industry. There are lots of opportunities in that space as well. And I'm certainly seeing it from my side. I'm working with a lot of startup companies and companies that are making a shift to use more digital capabilities to reach a larger audience, especially global, a global marketplace. So absolutely critical, I think.
Thanks, Carol.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Sanjay. I do have a question,
Yes.
and I'm going to read it out to you. What would you like to see evolve in corporations to improve the minority experience and that of underrepresented populations?
That's a big one. And I think
Yes.
everybody's struggling with that. Do you create a whole new set of roles? And then how do you, you also have to be practical, from a budgetary perspective, what does this look like? A lot of organizations have developed diversity and inclusion roles within their HR departments. And so I think that's great. I said, but I also believe that you need a representation at the operational level, from a technology perspective, and for every core vertical in your organization. You need someone that can speak to those experiences and make sure, have somebody at the table so that when you're creating a plan or strategic plan, or you choosing people on a team, that someone is there that's going to say, well, by the way, have you considered this person? And be able to speak to their capabilities as well, and create those stretch opportunities. I've been able to gain a lot of the experience and work with senior leadership by someone saying that and putting themselves forward and creating that opportunity for me as well. So.
Yeah, that's great. It's almost, I feel like this is almost how unions came into being in the beginning, right? Because here were the workers working and they needed someone, who could listen to them. And hence they formed unions, and they had the leaders of the unions who could speak for them and represent them.
Same
And,
thing happened with disability, veterans, and
exactly.
so you can't speak for someone if you've never walked in their shoes, right?
Exactly. And so it could,
same kind of representation and sensitivity around those variations in our community.
absolutely. There's one more quick question, and I think I know who this is coming from. So LinkedIn,
Yes.
big tool. Okay. I have heard you say sometimes that you cannot share your full technical ability on LinkedIn. Tell us about that.
Myself on LinkedIn. So yes, I think LinkedIn is a fantastic tool. And, again, it's really about how you want to brand yourself. How do you want people to see you and to understand what your skill sets are? If you are only interested in people seeing you from a technology perspective, then you're going to put forward a completely different profile as one where the view of their work is more from a strategic perspective as opposed to technical, hands-on. So you can't put everything in it, right? Because then it becomes a laundry list. And I think you put things that are relevant to what you're doing currently, but that also creates an opportunity when you do have an engagement to share more, right? So how much do you put in and how much do you leave out, right? So, clearly I went to Rensselaer, I've worked with some of the top technical companies. I've worked with a lot of, as colleagues, consulting companies, all the big 500, global 1,000 companies. So it's really about positioning yourself and branding yourself and having a responsibility.
I can see why you're a mentor. So Carol, another question. Can you, and I know we barely have any time, so this might have to be really quick.
Yes.
Can you share your experience as a woman leader in terms of progression challenges for a lady? And there's another question which I want you to kind of maybe combine,
Yes.
is, the work-life balance, especially as you progress, and as you progress in your career, it gets harder. And as a woman, there are more things expected of you at home. So how do you manage that too? So if you could just speak to those 2 minutes, that'd be great.
I will make it as fast as I can. So,
Okay.
so a couple of things. Work balance is critical. It's a 24-hour, 24/7 community that we live in, especially when we're working with global, in a global community. However, I do think, Sundays I put down the phone. Sundays I have a 2 o'clock commitment that I keep 98% of the time. And so one of the other things that I've always done as well is take time out to have dinner with my parents at least a couple of times a week. I also help to take care of my parents who are elderly and in their 90s. So, so I take them to all their appointments. So I'm coordinating all of this and being on meetings and trying to get all of this stuff done at the same time. But isn't that what we're called to do? Schedule, keep balance, not only at work, but it works at home. Bring those same skills home, right? So coordinating, making time for that is important. So hopefully we got most of that.
Yeah.
There.
And about your experience as a woman leader when in,
Yes.
like progression challenges, going up the chain.
Yeah. So again, one of the things that I've done is technology played a big role in that, but also volunteering, when something needs to get done. Be that person to raise your hand and put your foot in, put your foot in the door and put your hand forward and volunteer. That means that you may have to do more, but the experience that you gained from it, the additional knowledge that you gain, and then you also have an ability to show what you can actually do as well. And it's wrought with risk. And so, that's part of it. And most people are afraid of risk. So, how much do I want to put myself in the ring? But one of the things that you need to also keep in mind when you do volunteer is who am I volunteering with? And are they going to be supportive as well? And what's your exit strategy? You always have to be thinking about what your exit strategy is as well. But if you plan well, you will execute. And at the end of the day, it's the work you leave behind that's a telltale of who you are and what you've accomplished.
True. And the team that you work with, it counts to so much, the support, and especially, and this is, I think, the other important thing that we have been talking about, the leadership, to have that support from the leadership. This is the reason I like to go shop in Trader Joe's, because from the top to the bottom, everybody is just, exactly. So those kinds of things make such a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we are to the end of our lovely conversation today, and I have to ask you this one last question. Yes. Since we spoke so much about mentoring. Mm-hmm. Today, like if today I were to ask you, Carol, if you could have any mentor, on the planet, dead or alive, like, who would you choose to be your mentor?
I'm sticking with my original, which is Queen Elizabeth. She's just fantastic. She's the coolest person, calm, collected, never seem unprepared. She's always prepared. She's, she can deal with anybody at any level, and it's the same sincerity that you see. And, I think there's no substitute for being genuine, no substitute for preparation, and no substitute for flawless execution. And those are the things that are important to me, and those are the things that I look forward to. And I've been fortunate to have some really great mentors along the way as well. And, one of the things that Sylvia Broden told me real early in my career, as I've mentioned to you before, is pick one or two leaders in the company that you admire and model yourself after them. Learn all the good stuff that you can learn from them, and it will take you far.
True. And I'm sure we can pick some people that we want to learn from what not to do. Right? Sometimes you can learn from everybody.
There are always those, but those good leaders, that's why you look to them, because they're actually the ones that are dealing with all of that as well. And how do they deal with it gracefully and stealthily as well? It's all about, everything is a negotiation, right? So what are you willing to put in the game so that at the end of the day, there's a good outcomes? It's not a popularity contest, by the way. It's,
Oh,
and
okay.
so leadership, a lot of young folks that are coming up think it's a popularity. It's not. It's really about being clear about what the goal is, setting clear expectations, and also rewarding and thanking people that participate and put their work effort forward to make a company successful. We don't do this by ourselves. It takes a team, always.
These last 30 seconds, what you just said is so important.
Mhm.
So very important. So I would love to have you as my mentor anytime. Let me just tell you that, just throwing my hat in the ring right there.
We can exchange. We can do that. You're fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to say thank you very much. We are so fortunate to have a chance to speak with you today. And I think it will be a sentiment echoed by everybody, because this is just wonderful. It just gives us so much to learn and so much to be excited about, actually. So thank you very much for taking the time, for sharing your experiences, sharing your thoughts. And I love it. Thank you.
Hey, it's been fun. I appreciate the opportunity as well. And looking forward to see the rest of your fireside chats.
Absolutely. They will be going on. And I hope to meet up with you one of these days. East Coast, West Coast.
We'll have to make
Anywhere.
that happen. Absolutely.
All right.
Take care.